Wolf Tracer's Dinosaur Island by author unknown is a strange adventure into a world that only makes sense to one man, that world being the inside of Colin Slater's head. Colin Slater ran an animation studio and made several films over the course of his lifetime and the lifetime of his studio, with this being the last one that he attempted. The most famous of his works was Rhapsody Street Kids Believe in Santa, which aired on the WB channel in 2002 and then went missing for around 15 years before Slater released it to the public. I would cover that one, but literally everyone has given their take on it. I might still do it at some point for the hell of it, but I'd rather look at the one that has less coverage on it first, as I find that infinitely more interesting.
Cute. Then Mommy schedules me for my own hair lady. Smithy!
Hey, Nicole Duck! I mean Dinosaur!
It's a wonderful program for the retarded people.
Dinosaur Island was released in 2004, 2 years after Rhapsody Street Kids failed as a franchise and their Easter follow-up movie was cancelled. One thing that's fascinating about this film, and an element of it exists in Dinosaur Island, is that it somehow features a pretty big cast of voice actors who feature in a lot of Disney products and other things that were pretty big at the time, like The Simpsons. They also managed to bag Mark Hamill as a main cast member. There's a rumour going around that it's actually due to Scientology connections, which resulted in Colin Slater getting so many of these big actors on board. And honestly, that is one of the few things that actually makes sense. Because I can't imagine it being like Kevin Spacey in Moon, where he had to read the script and watch a version of the movie that didn't have him in it to go, yeah, this is worth my time. Like, could you imagine Mark Hamill turning down some Star Wars shit or something just to look at this and go, yep, Dinosaur Island, that's where my future is.
Look, stop it!
I mean, like a year before he appeared in Avatar The Last Airbender, but still, it's like, I imagine he was umming and ahhing. He was like, you know what, if it comes to it, Avatar, fuck off. I'm sticking with Dinosaur Island. That's the winning horse. Dinosaur Island is something akin to Treasure Island meets Lost World. A group of dipshit sailors fall through a time portal and end up going to Dinosaur Island. The movie opens up with a monologue which is competently written, but it sounds like stuff you've heard before but can't place due to it being so formulaic.
Have you ever had a dream? Not the kind when you're asleep, but something you want with all your heart. I've had a dream like that ever since I was a little girl. A dream to explore and find out things no one has ever known. And when I grew up, I followed my dream. But I didn't find out things no one has ever known before. I found out things no one has known for a very, very long time.
We're far from safe harbor. Truth to tell, many a man has been lost at sea. She's a vast mistress, who jealously guards her treasures. Who jealously guards her treasure.
I do have to admit, the voice acting is probably my favourite part of the movie, but it is kind of dumb how characters keep cutting each other off. Just, why? Like, why? It's the same thing that Bevanfield did, where they have really good actors like Christopher Lee and then cut the audio to shit. Like, why? It's not that hard to get right. Maybe it was a bit harder in the 90s. But you started to have digital audio editing, I'm pretty sure at that point in time you could have at least maybe not fucked it up. The dipshits introduce themselves after being at sea for days, because it's quite normal to be stuck in a confined space without knowing the names of the people you're confined with.
What are you, the first mate? Blake, is it?
What a rude man. How perfect.
Jack, the annoying one, is trying to ocean fish in the middle of the ocean, but gets yoinked overboard and ends up in the sea. Well, he died quick. Then the ship ends up being dragged into a storm that's also a time portal, and it dumps them on an island. The actual plot of this thing, whilst competent enough in most aspects, is a group of characters bumbling around an island, finding things, saying, "Look at that," and then moving on to the next thing.
Oh my.
Hey! What do you think you're doing?
Jack!
Give that back!
Jack,
Hello? He's eating our house.
who's eating our house?
What do you mean, who? Him? That big dinosaur?
Amazing.
Aren't those supposed to be extinct? You know, museum, bones, dead?
There is somewhat of a variety of the dinosaurs on Dinosaur Island, and I do kind of appreciate that. I think there's at least 5 different kinds, maybe more than that. Which, honestly, I've seen movies which are way more, like, impressive visually than this and take themselves way more seriously than this, that only have, like, 3 types of dinosaurs and the whole thing. So, kudos for that, I guess.
Dick.
Troy, that's about to change.
No! Give me the flare gun.
What? Not a chance. You're not gonna risk our rescue for a beast that should be extinct.
Watch me.
Troy! Get back here!
Dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die.
Come on, Smiley. Over here. Hungry? Eat this. Drat.
Dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die.
You think you can out-rabbi me?
You call yourself a Jew?
Uh-oh.
Get the fuck out of here! There it is.
Blake!
I'm okay! The spikes broke my fall.
Look out!
One thing I do find funny about this movie is the animation. It's not like they half-arsed the whole concept, but a lot of the animation just does not hold up to the epicness of what's on display.
Help! Ow!
Several things look like they're dragging the dinosaurs around with the fizz gun from Gary's mod. And the run animation, which was recycled from Rhapsody Street Kids, which I don't know why you'd recycle shit from that, but they did. It looks really funny. Like, especially in one scene where this captain's running away like, "You'll never catch me," and he looks like he's about to fall over and die. It's great. One thing about this after seeing Rhapsody Street Kids is whilst I don't see an amazing amount of assets recycled, I do notice a few recurring animation approaches. For example, you do have the characters that all look like blow-up dolls, and you do have a number of characters that are voiced and acting like characters from that movie. Like, I think his name's Jack, the little dark-haired one who's slightly annoying. He's basically Smithy from Rhapsody Street Kids. Maybe that's who Smithy became when he grew up. Another thing as well about this movie, which I found really weird, was the fact that it's meant to be a case that these people came from modern day, but the ship they're on doesn't look that modern. It looks like... I honestly thought they were coming from, like, say, the 1800s, and this was going to be like Lost World. But apparently it was the worst possible ship they could find that looked several centuries out of date, piloted by an old captain who looks like a goddamn There's a number pirate. of hints to suggest what the island is, suggesting that it's outside of time, kind of like a sort of Time Lord thing. There's cave paintings of several people from several time zones having a little fight. After 10 minutes of dicking about on Dinosaur Island, they find this cove that has a ship in it, and on the ship there's a journal. There is a bit of confusion as to who wrote the journal at first, because they're trying to keep it a secret, but I was kind of spoiled because I saw how many cast members there were on IMDb and knew that there was only like 5 people in this whole thing, so it had to be one of those 5. The 5th character who ends up being the villain of the story.
What the fuck?
Child murderer! Child murderer!
After 20 or so minutes, they find an old ruin that is covered in hieroglyphics of some kind. It's here that they meet Clive, who is a 16th century guy who found himself on the island. After that, they find themselves captured by tribals, who all wear tiki masks so that they didn't have to bother designing multiple characters who appear on screen. Cause, you know, if it went from 5 characters to 30 characters, that would just be too much work, really. The tribal leader reveals himself as the ship captain from the start of the movie. I thought he painted his hands to make his skin colour look black, but he actually was wearing leather gloves, so I guess that's a there's a dodged bullet we have there. It's at this point that we have a romance that's so fucking out of nowhere and forced, I legit feel like it was snuck in here and went unnoticed before the film was finally done, and by the time they did notice they just didn't care to remove it, because there's nothing to suggest that these two are interested in each other before this point.
For years I followed your lead.
What? You've been leeching off my discoveries?
No, it's not like that. My research. You're the one who
You
inspired
worm!
me.
If I ever get off this island, I will have your...
Not the best time to plan for the future.
I love that these dinosaurs do a little jig, it's fantastic.
Feeding time.
The movie ends on a cliffhanger, which never got concluded, so it's more of a downer ending.
You be going somewhere.
This dream isn't quite over.
I personally like to think of it as canon that they got killed by the T-Rex here. It's kind of like that bad ending that you can get in the council where everything's fucked. It works as an ending. Like, it's a cautionary tale, always kill your enemies and don't let them leave, because otherwise you get fucked. I don't know why so many people struggle with this lesson and moral, but somehow people still keep making that mistake. If you beat your enemy, shoot him in the head whilst he's down. You know how few enemies re-offend after getting shot in the head? Basically none of them. So, to conclude, Wolf Tracer's Dinosaur Island is, it's a thing that exists, and it's the kind of movie that would honestly be amazing to show to someone who you've just kidnapped. And then, like, you kidnap them, drug them, strap them to a chair in an empty room with nothing but this movie playing, make them watch the whole thing from start to finish whilst tied up, drug them again, take them back to wherever you kidnapped them and then just dump them on the side of the road. And they'll spend the rest of their lives wondering if this movie is a real movie, if this happened to them, why it happened to them, and it will be the greatest prank of all time. But unfortunately, well, it's just, other than that, it's not worth much. Like, the movie is very dodgily animated. It looks like complete arse. But aside from that brilliant purpose, I can't really think of much else for it. I wouldn't even recommend it as a so bad it's good movie, because in truth, despite the fact that it has some oddities in it that do sort of lightly scratch that itch, it's just not on the level where it's just a perfect scratch for that itch. There are some movies that are absolutely outstanding for so bad it's good material, and sadly this just isn't one of them. I recently learnt that Colin Slater, the guy who made this, passed away in 2019, which is pretty sad. It means we'll probably never get a sequel to this, because there was a real chance of that happening since, you know, it's been 20 years and no one's ever mentioned the possibility of it since. But it is sad that we lost a guy who actually worked pretty damn hard his whole life to make animation, even if it was quite inept.
Like, call me bizarre, but I prefer Colin Slater's baffling attempts at animation to lazy corporate shit. Like, maybe it's just a me thing, but this doesn't feel like something that was made out of laziness. I think there was actually some form of passion, but a lack of talent to express that passion. And as a result, it just sort of resulted in this. Wolf Trace's Dinosaur Island.
I'm the one and only man they can trust. I told him so myself. But enough! Feeding time!
Professor Curious is okay.